I didn't know. Wait a second. I didn't know we were allowed to bring our own mic because I would have brought a doozy then. See that? I lost.
The thing is, we can't have these guys on the podcast. They bring the fancy toys. I know. They make us look bad. I mean, he hasn't noticed yet that his mic stand is duct taped together.
Yeah, that's going to be the whole problem, is that it would never sound as good.
We actually use the tips of the lawn darts as electrical connections.
This is the Darkside Records and Gallery Podcast.
An important question. Beer?
No. I got tea, thanks.
18.
Beer?
No.
Maybe.
If he didn't say 18,
Liabilities.
if he didn't say 18 first, then I would just go on these. It's,
You left the 1930s wooden chairs out?
They're not that bad.
Yeah.
I got these out of a Southern Tent Revivalist traveling church. They came with free snakes.
You know where to shop, sir.
You know how hard it is to find the Southern Tent Revivalist Church store?
Just ask Jimmy Carter. Wow. Brought his own mic?
Yeah.
We just went over this.
Sorry, I was doing store things.
I'm jealous now. I didn't know we could bring our own mics.
We've got this guy who's a mentor to this kid who's learning equipment repair, and he just seems to have everything in his car. He just drives a Prius, I'm pretty sure. He's a radio guy, so there's this gigantic antenna sticking out of the top of it. But like the other day, he just walks in with an oscilloscope after like being in the back row. Oh, I'll be right back. And he just walks in with an oscilloscope. Anything imaginable, he seems to have in the trunk of his car.
I've had a lot in my like bag or something in my car. Yeah, I'm used to carrying a lot. Matter of fact, I probably do have. Well, there's not that much because we just unloaded from a weekend of gigs. But yeah, you got to carry stuff. People are always asking. At a
Final
gig.
check. Just.
Oh, for God's sake. Sit down. God. Sit down. I was going to steal your intro.
Look, I just had to make sure the most important mic was working.
You look like such a fucking diva with that blue light on your face.
I can't see Alan at all.
Oh, really?
You are in a
I see all of you.
Sphere.
I'm the silhouette. That's what it's supposed to be. How's the new lighting working?
I don't think we've plugged it in since then.
Haven't plugged it in since?
No. I don't know if we've had it at a band play since then, though.
I don't think we have.
There was an incident with a flight.
Oh, that's true, yeah. We were supposed to have Catfish and the Bottlemen come and do like a 3 or 4 song acoustic set, but their flight was rerouted over. They left Manchester and they got to just about Dublin, and the plane had to turn around for a mechanical failure.
Ooh.
So, yeah.
That's got to be a weird feeling to be in the plane and they're saying, we have to turn around? And you're like, why are we turning around?
Nope. Apparently, it was one of those, the inflatable slides, the emergency slides, came out, like, mid-flight.
It's just, like, flapping along the side.
So can you imagine it's playing, like, hundreds of miles an hour?
I was going to say, I imagine that like, creates a lot of drag.
Yeah.
I mean, those airplanes are pretty precise instruments.
Yeah.
Like, you really don't want a lot of drag. A friend of mine was on Facebook complaining. She was, like, flying from L.A. to New York, and she said she hit, like, the worst turbulence she's ever experienced, like, flying. And she's like, I was convinced we were going to die. Like, there's this guy next to me, like, counting his prayer beads. The woman on my other side is, like, praying to her crystal jewels or something like that. And she's like, and there's my secular ass sitting there panicking, going apeshit, convinced we're going to die. We land, and the woman next to me gave me a crystal. She's like, for your connection.
No good.
She's like, it didn't help. It's bullshit.
Well, there was a time. Quick backstory for Alan is my parents sent me to Bible camp every summer when I was younger, and I remember there was 1 year. I think we were flying to Oklahoma, and
The home of fun.
That's actually, it's on the state plaque right when you fly in. Also, I'll tell you about the thing I actually did when we flew into Texas for the first time in my life. But so we were flying to Oklahoma, and I went through maybe the worst turbulence I've ever been in my life. Mm-hmm. We were in like a twin engine plane, like 8 people tops, and it was like terrifying.
It's like Leonard Skinner shit right there.
And then I just remember, I don't know who said it, whether it was like, the cult. I'm sorry, Bible leader, or whether it was, one of us, but someone was like, we're going to Bible camp. This plane is not crashing. and somehow I was
It didn't
like everyone was cool, and we're
I
like,
was just saying,
all
were
right.
you like struck by lightning instantly? Everyone was fried except you.
It's the other way around.
So what are we going to talk about?
We could.
This really is about
it.
it. This is
This
where
is
we
about
go each time.
a lot of tangents. We have a list of questions. We do a lightning rapid fire question round.
Okay.
I hope you're prepped.
Glad I had some caffeine. This
Yep,
is good.
yep.
This is good.
Also, your lawn dart score will be tested later.
Yeah, I remember lawn darts. That poor kid that
We should do more.
has no problem wearing glasses anymore.
We should do more remote episodes, where we go to other places like record us playing.
In an empty field somewhere playing lawn darts.
So you just throw them in the ground, or do you need to have like?
I think you got to
a
launch
board?
them up and they arc.
Into what?
Into
Yeah.
a circle.
Like
Like a target on the ground.
It's target based. It's precision based.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think I've ever played lawn darts.
Yeah.
You're not really a sportsman?
Look,
I think they were outlawed quite a while ago.
They were.
Were they?
Because
Yeah.
of this guy that doesn't have a problem wearing glasses anymore.
Yeah,
so we have illegal lawn darts.
absolutely.
I
I don't know what we're doing with them, but
was
I'll
the-
add them to the endless pile of shit that we have laying around here.
Why do we have lawn darts on our table?
I just found them in a
Found it in
box.
an
I
endless
was
pile of shit.
a guy dropped off some records that we didn't buy, and I didn't look at what else was in the box, and I was just going to take the records and throw the box away. And turns out there was lawn darts and this 8-track cassette adapter in there, which I had never seen before.
Yeah, for anyone who's listening, this is an adapter.
It's like the thing, the cassette tape with the wire that you plug into your phone, but for 1973.
where you put a cassette in and it plugs into an 8-track player.
And it
This
only
is-
works with Creedence tapes.
It is surprisingly heavy. Like there's a lot of machinery in that thing.
I love this fast forward button.
Yeah, that's cool too.
This I remember this button. Yeah.
Like a remote fast forward. Like it's
It's built into
what,
the
what,
front
what
there.
it is, there's a play mode right there, and then this is stop, but then this is fast forward.
and is
over
that
there.
is
I
that
remember this well. Yeah.
is that native to all 8 tracks or is that native to just that adapter?
No, just this adapter. I remember like being in a car and like pushing that down and just going just like one of my first experiences of like fast forwarding tapes was with one of these adapters because you couldn't fast forward. I don't think you could fast forward a normal 8-track because of the way the mechanism was. I wonder if it would get tangled because it was continuous loop
Right.
inside there. I think fast forwarding and or rewinding might not have been possible, but with that it was.
So this machine, did it take the physical tape and wind it out to the outside edge where the 8-track is, or
No.
or did it
Just-
read
There's
the
just
magnetic?
heads in there.
Magnetic to
Yeah.
magnetic, yeah.
That's
Yeah, it's a whole nother analog stage.
didn't turn his phone
New
off.
kid didn't turn his phone off.
Yeah, he's new to this game.
New podcast.
And he brings his own mic, too.
Yeah, it's fucking showing off on day one.
Gotta make a good impression.
You're getting a swirly.
And so you know, I haven't seen. Are you guys selling cassettes here yet?
Yeah, we actually on the wall right
I
over
just-
there.
I-
There's
I didn't
I don't
get
know, 16 feet of cassettes, I'd say.
Wow. Well, I saw a really interesting little diagram that was like vinyl, and it was like cassettes, and it was CDs, and it was download, and it went back to vinyl, and it went back to cassettes, and it went back to CDs, and then back to down. It's an interesting concept. It's actually might be happening that way.
Indeed.
So yeah.
We even we did a showcase for a new Poughkeepsie cassette only label that just started up.
Wow.
Yeah.
Interesting.
There's a couple around.
Local
There's
ones?
Queen City and Sad Cactus.
Or is Sad Cactus tape exclusive though?
You're right. I think they're tape heavy, but not tape exclusive.
Yeah.
Wow. Amazing.
I just think because the duplicators are so cheap right now that they can, you can pick one up for $150, $200, and then
Right.
you start a tape label in your studio apartment.
Right.
Get in while it's hot
Right. Right. Interesting.
before the cassette bubble.
These people are all going to be millionaires in 2 years. Millionaires.
So the thing now would be to buy CD manufacturing, pressing machines. When they were $1 million a piece, they're probably maybe $80 a piece now.
Yeah.
So
Probably buy them in the same place JB got these mics.
Look, you don't even know where I got these chairs from, so I'm just wheeling and dealing. That's all I do. This is actually on Girk's business card, not mine. So
Yeah, that's true.
my bad.
Cool.
Hey everybody, welcome to the Darkside Records and Gallery podcast, brought to you as always by the good folks at Darkside Records, located at 611 Dutchess Turnpike in Poughkeepsie. This is the intro. We're just going to do the intro here.
Yeah, I'm good.
This, of course, is a podcast about music,
Sometimes.
vinyl,
Sometimes.
the music industry,
Today.
8 tracks,
Yeah. Never really 8 tracks.
anime.
No.
No, I don't think we've ever gone there. No, never. But now.
I'm sure we've discussed hentai, but not specifically
Yeah, I was going to
anime.
say.
I feel like that exact phrase has been said before on the podcast.
Probably by me.
Yet we don't
There is a
actually.
difference.
Although,
Action.
disclaimer, I've never actually watched hentai.
If you've watched anime, you've pretty much watched hentai.
You've seen it.
I feel like
I've sold it, for sure. But
here or at
no,
previous.
at FYE sold a lot of hentai.
I didn't realize that FYE had like an adult.
Yeah, in the back corner, at least, 15 years ago, in the back corner of all FYEs, there was...
It was like Skinemax level, though.
yeah,
right?
it was like, it was like Playboy DVDs, Girls
Playboy.
Gone Wild, and then a hentai section.
There is no softcore hentai. That's
No,
anime.
I was going to say that's. The
No,
rest
they-
of the
they
section
were
was
in a
pretty
separate-
soft, and then
yeah.
they decided to. It was cartoon, so it's okay.
We had these like Lexan covers that we had to put in front of each pocket, and so like all the non-hentai was just a silhouette of a Playboy bunny, but then the anime ones said like hentai 18 plus in like red Japanese sort of font. So they got their own distinct cards.
Their own quasi-racist distinct cards.
Absolutely, some guy in Albany just literally put that graphic together.
Kind of Japanese
it's-
font.
Yeah.
Yeah, like
Because you really couldn't be in Japanese.
no,
right?
like
Because you
just
wouldn't
like
be able to read
that
it.
sort of like Naruto sort of font.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know if it can be racist if it's a cartoon, right?
No,
just-
pretty sure it can. I think that's racism.
It's not really that octopus doing that thing to that girl.
Why don't you ask friends about the cartoons?
You could look at old Disney cartoons, Brer Rabbit.
Song of the South. I love that. I have that on VHS.
That doesn't
It's
surprise me that
banned.
that's in your
I-
home.
That's.
Yeah.
I love that movie.
That
I mean,
doesn't-
actually, it's not a great movie, but
none of that
I enjoy
surprises
Splash
me.
Mountain. I always wondered where it came from. Mm-hmm. Now I know.
Yes, that's the reason I have closet racist cartoons in my house.
It was a gift.
It's always a gift from your uncle who's like, "Here, boy, watch this."
Listen, my Uncle Remus is a good man.
Well, I'm JB,
I'm JJ.
Alberta.
and we have with us, for better or for worse, my friend, it's just a ride.
I'm sorry I invited you.
We have with us a special guest this week. Do you want to be included in the intro for this?
He brought his own mic. He gets an intro.
Still not sure if he
You're
wants to talk.
you're
He
gonna
just
be
has
here?
his mic.
We have with us this week two very special guests. Someone who, in fact, helped us a great bit on Record Store Day, who is way more popular than we are, and if had a podcast, it would be infinitely more popular than ours. Don't steal my idea.
Probably better produced.
No, you should totally make a podcast about the work you've done. That'd be awesome.
We've thought about it, but we're kind of busy.
So are we.
Welcome to the club.
Welcome to the club. Yeah.
We scheduled this like
But actually, that's why I
a
like
month
coming
ago.
here instead. It's like I get my opportunity to speak, but we share the wealth. We share the knowledge.
And he does all the work. It's the best part about it.
Yeah, yeah.
I, of course, have Alan
Dutchess.
Dutchess.
Yes, everybody wonders about that. Dutchess like couches, pouches. Yeah.
That's the one joke I said I wasn't going to make. I wasn't going to. And if he roped me right in.
It's
I
okay.
couldn't.
You learned how to fight early in my life.
Yeah.
Alan Dutchess is here, and he has brought with him, of course.
Alakitos.
Who are you?
I'm helping out Alan. I'm his one of his assistants.
Cool.
He's in training, engineer in training.
Very cool.
Yeah.
Very cool.
Yeah.
Welcome, both of you,
Thank
to
you.
the
Yeah,
podcast.
Love this.
So, is that like a program, or you guys just got in touch somehow?
Yeah, I guess, from time to time, you meet young musicians that want to learn how to do engineering, and and they stick around a little, and you say, you know what, you're kind of getting the hang of it, so maybe you should stick around a little bit more. And then they say, yeah, I'd like to stick around. Can you tell me about this? And it works out.
So it's like a gang.
It's a gang. It's a
So at
gang.
what point do you beat him into submission and initiate
What did I say?
him?
They're way
3 months.
past
I said
that.
I just
Okay.
3
You told me
months.
not to talk about that, right?
Oh yeah, that's right. Yeah.
It's called wiggling the XLR.
Yeah, I mean, we try to keep, a good steady crew around just to help out. There's a lot of little tasks to do, retrieving data, filing things. So that's where they start.
Coffee.
Yeah, I'm cutting down on the coffee, but I needed it tonight. Yeah.
I was gonna say I feel like even we run a very similar, let's say, hiring structure, which is it's kind of like it's half people who have come in and we feel like a good vibe and be like, you kind of are good at this, you should be here, and the other half is just people who don't leave, like me.
That's kind of true. I met
a fair
JB.
point, yeah.
I don't know if we've ever told this story on the podcast, but maybe we have. We met you on our first day in business, January 11th, January 17th, 2011.
Not 2009.
No.
Okay. I'm very confused as the timeline of the store. Clearly.
He came in on our first day open and told us we should start a speed dating event in the store. And I'm not sure how we stayed in touch after that, but that's where it all began.
Wow.
And
So you guys, your first date was here in the store.
Yeah.
That's it.
6 years later, we have yet to do a speed dating event.
That's true. We've talked about it 2 Valentine's days in a row, but
Campaign promise he has not fulfilled.
we haven't figured out how to really decreep it yet. That's the main problem.
yeah.
Oh, right.
In-
There are some
theory,
eligible
it's a-
bachelors out there. Artie would be a great candidate for speed dating.
See, that's the problem. That's-
R.I.P.
What?
He's dead?
I don't know. Who,
Don't do that,
Who
man.
has seen Artie in the last 6 months?
I thought he was doing his stint in jail.
Well, it's a little late for that.
Maybe he actually did something serious this time.
Could be.
I mean, just to be safe, I'm going to Artie, like Candyman him and summon him.
I worked for Jesse
So-
Tepper earlier.
I did,
so-
yeah.
Nice. So good luck whoever's working tomorrow.
Not me.
Look, we've had a rough week here, so.
Yeah. Anyway, did we say where Alan is from? I can't remember.
Alan is, of course, from West Side Music.
Yeah, West Side Music. Yeah, couldn't figure out how many Wests to put there, so we stopped at 2. We were originally in Manhattan for a little while, and then we moved to West New York, and everybody got confused, so we had to say, well, West Side Music, and that's where that stuck from, kind of. So, 28 years later, can't change it. Can't change
You're
it.
in now.
They're in.
And why
It's
should you?
done.
Yeah.
Yeah.
West New York, is that Jersey?
That was the whole point.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay,
that was it. They were like, "Well, where'd you move?" I'm like, "Oh, I'm in West New York." "Oh, you're back in the city." No, we're in Jersey now. No, you said West New York. It's just where it's kind
I
of
like to admit it.
Yeah, yeah.
Beard is wrapped up in the mic stand.
I don't know. I have a lot of friends who have all moved to like the Jersey City area. That supposedly is very hot right now. If you're
Yeah.
moving out of Brooklyn to a cool, hip, like beacon.
They're just trying to
No,
say
I was
that
going to say,
about
they're
Jersey.
just sad because I couldn't get a place in Brooklyn.
Yeah.
That's just inflation.
Yeah.
No one's happy about being in Jersey City.
I didn't
They're
say.
trying to make the best of it, like Anne Frank in the attic.
Hey, we just got there.
Made it.
That's a confusing milestone for the podcast.
Told you I was tired.
So we met. We met a couple months ago.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm trying to figure out what was the exact point at which we talked. I know we had Antic in here,
That's right. Yeah, we did have that group. Yeah, they were pretty cool.
and
It was Halloween, I think.
It was a Halloween
around
party.
Halloween,
Yeah.
yeah.
I remember because there was a
Yeah.
lot of costumes and glow sticks.
Right. Right. And we
Yeah.
were. Yep.
I was finding glow sticks for months under the bins after that.
Yeah, who was that? I was working, I think it was me and Becca. And like she would walked in and there were like everyone in like costumes. She's like, I don't know what I just walked into. This is weird.
And we were doing the direct lathe cuts.
That's
Yes.
right.
Yeah,
That's right.
that's
I
cool
do remember
stuff.
that.
It's cool stuff.
In fact, we have those framed and hanging up on the wall.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome. Yeah. Cool, fun little merch thing.
I'm so sad I missed that.
Where
It was
were you?
super cool.
I think it was just like it was a babies needed me at home sort of night.
Mm-hmm.
So those things happen.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I think that was it. And then that's when we started talking about pursuing the live recording thing here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
We were
yeah.
Really taking it up a notch. Bringing our own mics and things like that. Yeah. But you know I just wanted to bring up a point that I'm wondering if there's any kind of correlation between the decadence in the music business and the proliferation of the giant super CD stores, because they're so impersonal. But this is so much fun to walk around in here. And so I think there's more, independent record stores open. I think we have a chance of saving the music business. I may be prophetic here, but I'm hoping.
I'd like to think so.
Yeah, I think so. It's,
I mean,
As long as they don't open in Poughkeepsie. Because then we got to throw down.
I think it's certainly true that the decline of the music business has led to the rebirth of the indie record store.
Yeah. That's what I was saying. There's got to be some kind of scientific correlation there. But
And then, the fortuitousness of Record Store Day 10 years ago, that really put it back on the map again.
Yeah. It's awesome.
I think in general, indie stores each have their own unique character that you're not going to find at a Best Buy or Barnes & Noble that are such a cookie-cutter enterprise.
Well, having run one of those establishments, you're not, in no way is it about the music. It's about
The hentai.
I'm sure there's a way better margin on hentai than there ever was on a CD, even when CDs were still $19.99. It's it's minimum wage positions, so you're just looking for bodies.
Yeah.
And there's not, you got lucky sometimes with people with passion, and I would say most store managers ended up being either failed musicians or people with liberal arts degrees that didn't know what else to do, but loved music. So. Yeah.
No, it was great to see on Record Store Day here too. The the line outside and people inside packed. It was awesome.
It was a crazy day. I would say Record Store Day has always every year been our busiest day of the year, and we've always managed to outpace ourselves each year. But this was the first year that there was no lull in the day. Usually around either late afternoon or early evening, sort of dinner time, we'd have a little slowdown. But it stayed busy.
Yeah.
Right up until after Today Is the Day was done.
Yeah. I mean, it doesn't surprise me that the tactile, experience is, really a draw for so many people. Whether or not they, I'm working with bands all the time, and they're, are you guys mastering for vinyl or CD or download? Vinyl. Oh, yeah. Well, what kind of turntable will you have? Oh, I don't have a turntable, or whatever. But they're still participating in that thing,
I can not remember the stats off the top of my head, but I went to a convention of industry and record store owners this past fall, and one of the speakers was giving numbers about the actual demographics of vinyl buyers, particularly in the U.S., and the huge majority of 24 and under are only purchasing vinyl to own the vinyl. They'd have nothing to play it on.
Well, okay, that segues to this story. I won't mention the band name, and it's not a big band, so it doesn't really matter. But
It's brand new.
So that's a different story. We were, again, finishing up the mastering session, and at the end, we kind of have this session sheet that Rose in the office puts together, and it's okay, so so you guys are, you need a DDP master for this, and vinyl masters, and one guy goes, oh no, we don't need the vinyl master. I'm like, oh, okay, well let's just scratch that. No, we need it. I'm like, well, wait. One guy's saying he needs it. One does is saying he's not needing it. So what's the deal here, guys? And then they're like, no, don't tell him. And I'm like, what's going on here? He's gonna find out. I'm trying to figure out what's going on. So then they decided to tell me that what they did was they went around to all the different, dollar stores, pawn shops, whatever, bought as much used vinyl as they could, printed up labels with the band and their logo and the song titles, put their labels on the used vinyl, bought blank sleeves, and made jackets up, because they get the jackets for 25 cents or 30 cents a piece, and and the label is a penny a piece, and the sleeve is a penny or two a piece, and they were putting their labels on somebody else's vinyl. Anybody. It could be, Gloria Gaynor. It could be, Screamin' Jay Hawkins. It didn't matter. And put it inside their jacket with a download card. And they were willing to bet that people won't even notice. Now, is that stupidity? Or No, I'm not going to say it.
It's certainly an interesting experiment.
Well,
Yeah, I almost respect it. At the same time.
said. Well, I mean, I don't write it. I just report it. But it says what an important part of the culture it is. It's
Talk about
kind of
the image of that.
Yeah, that they
having it,
want, and the collectible. I talk to bands all the time that are pressing vinyl. They're like, they at a gig they can't sell a CD for $5, but they can sell their vinyl for $20.
Right.
With a download card. And
Yeah.
the question is to whether or not. I mean, I think ultimately, especially if the quality is in the vinyl and you're holding on to it, at some point in your life, you're going to want to hear it.
I guess that sort of segues slightly into. So, explain the difference between mastering for vinyl and mastering for a CD or a digital.
Okay, well,
Jumping right in here.
You mean with brand new, or do you mean with? I'm sorry. No. Well, it is kind of funny because years ago when we were mastering in general, when vinyl was the primary format, everybody wanted their vinyl louder, right? And it made sense because the deeper you could cut it, the better your signal to noise ratio was, the better it jumped off of the groove. And then as vinyl disappeared and we got to CDs and we were making all that loud, everybody wanted their CDs louder, and it worked. It made people jump. It drew attention to it. When vinyl started coming back, all of a sudden there wasn't a volume war about it anymore. And so what we were able to do was we were able to put the more dynamic versions from the high definition mastering onto the vinyl. So the vinyl, depending upon your cartridge setup, typically has about 50 dB signal to noise ratio, something like that, 52, 54, 48 if it's one of the plastic ones or something. So you've got about 50 dB of dynamic range. On a CD, you got 96 dB of dynamic. I mean, it's hugely more dynamic. So you can store incredible dynamic material on a CD, but nobody does. And here we take the more dynamic masters and we put them in the medium that actually can't handle it, in a sense. But because people aren't compelled to, I don't know anybody that has a multi-disc vinyl player anymore, right? I mean,
we sway everybody away from even using them.
Right, exactly, right. But so when you take it off, you turn the volume. So you're always adjusting your volume. That whole experience now lets us in mastering master for a different audience, and often the vinyl audience, is more inclined to listen through a whole side, not just a song. So when you're mastering for digital, there's an immediacy. It's got to be that 7 seconds. It's got to grab you. It's got to hit right off the bat. On vinyl, chances are when you hit that whatever side, and it's interactive. So you put it on side 2 first, and you put on the first track. You're not going to listen. Chances are you took the time to take the record out, put it on the turntable, put on that first track. It's a conscientious effort. You're going to listen through more. And actually, I know it, people will listen to an album more if it's on vinyl than it's on the phone. Because you get interrupted by a phone call, by a text, by a thing, by a whatever. It's too easy to skip around. Mm-hmm. So when we're mastering, we're thinking of that. We're thinking that it's not just bang them over the head quick. We're actually thinking a more dynamic experience. So we're not compressing it as hard. We're not limiting it as hard. So that's more of the emotional. There's technical things too that obviously that the medium can't handle, extreme high frequencies and lows, out of phase material. So there's some technical stuff that we certainly keep an eye on. But the really surprising thing, and also sometimes for people to check their vinyl masters, we give them of their sequence, because a lot of times the sequence will be different. There'll be different fades or something, different timing in between tracks. We'll give them a reference MP3 of what is going to be cut, and it's amazing to hear people take the CD, which is 96 dB, full 16-bit 44K, and then give them the MP3, which is a compressed, lossy format, but it's more dynamic. And then they take them and they listen to the two back to back, and they're like, well, why does the MP3 sound better? Because we didn't squash it, because we didn't limit it hard. We allowed the music to breathe. And so, hence, it's a more enjoyable experience. You guys are kind of baffled at me.
I'm
You're
so
looking at
completely
me.
baffled right
I
now.
mean, does it make sense though? Because it's really interesting to understand that we're actually taking the more dynamic master and putting it in a less dynamic medium.
But people
but people are finding it more enjoyable. Yeah.
Wow.
So is it like the placebo effect then? Like it's just the
Well,
No, it's
the act of listening to it and like putting the needle down and the pops and the hiss and
I mean, I think there is the tactile thing, the engaging experience certainly makes you like something a little bit better. Yeah, I think that certainly has to come into play with it. But technically speaking, it's a better master. Even though we're putting, I mean, when I say it's a inferior medium, I don't mean to say that it's bad. It's just when you measure it, as far as the
Like
stats
numbers
of
to
it.
numbers.
Yeah,
it's more limited.
Right. It's left and right separation might be 30 dB on vinyl if you're lucky. At 1 kilohertz. On a CD, it's 92 or 94 dB. I mean, so your left and right separation on a CD, it's drastically different. You can do much more creative things coming off of that digital medium, but it doesn't engage you the same way.
Yeah, because just from my own experience, I've had so many times when I grew up on CDs. I didn't really grow up on vinyl. I found it when I became a teenager.
Right.
that was our generation, man.
Yeah, I had cassettes and then CDs when I was old enough to actually buy music on my own. I've listened to so many things on LP now where I feel like, and maybe it's, now I'm questioning, is it just emotional? Or I feel like I'm hearing more detail than I ever heard when I listened to a CD.
Well, what the experience should be, what's really interesting about it too, is that you can take a vinyl playback and record it digitally and like it better than the original digital source. And I've seen that a lot of times from people where, it's and a lot of times even like with some of these turntables, they're USB turntables. So it's not an analog. So, and for that matter, it's rare to find people. I mean, here in the store, it's awesome. Even when we had the DJ the other day, it was kind of like, you're hearing an analog source. Many people don't really know what a real full analog system sounds like,
That's true.
And and it actually a good system can have a significantly better signal to noise ratio and a dynamic range than a digital system, but they're super expensive. You're not going to get that.
Wow.
I know when I
didn't mean to go deep on you guys. But,
No,
I am a mastering engineer.
That's what we want to do.
That's
That's what we're here for.
I know when I listened to the Once Upon a Time, there was a thing called a Pono that came out for like 6 months.
Pono was awesome for about 3 minutes.
Yeah.
They just announced they're shutting down the Pono store, actually. Stopping production.
Well, it was
just last week.
It was their sales approach with their salesman.
Yeah.
I mean, it was kind of not really the icon that we wanted to be selling.
It was the Zune of this generation.
Yeah.
But for the record, Darkside Records still has some Ponos in stock available for
Do you
sale.
really?
They are now antiques.
Yeah.
The
Yeah.
price is going up. But no, I remember the first time I listened to the Pono. I think the first album I downloaded from the Pono store in like FLAC format was Siamese Dream by Smashing Pumpkins, which is like one of my all-time favorite albums. And there was definitely more depth to the tracks than I'd ever heard in any other format, whether CD, cassette, or vinyl.
Right.
I mean, there were like guitar riffs I'd never heard before. It sounded like a whole new song.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. See, that's the thing about it is that digital it can be awesome. It really can be, but they're big files, and the electronics to it need to be done properly, but it's just not necessarily fun. And that's the thing, like even just walking around the shop here, it's just like, it's just so much fun to just flip through big pieces of artwork and say, oh my God, but it's not the same as just scrolling with your finger in iTunes or something,
That's something we talk about all the time. It's I like to equate, people all the time say, well, who's buying records? I can just have it all right here. I like to say that it's a convenience versus engagement.
Yeah. Yeah.
And both are fine. They're their own worlds, and people are free to choose. But I think our customers in particular are, they're engagement people.
Yeah.
they're looking for nostalgia or a connection or ritual.
Yeah, well, like I said, I think that for a band to press vinyl, even though maybe they don't have a lot of fans and it's hard to, for them to afford the expense, thousands of dollars when you really, never mind, potentially an extra $100 in a mastering fee or something like that. But like when you talk about plates and lacquers and, and pressing and the jackets and all that, but what you do wind up with is you wind up getting your audience to listen deeper into your record, listening longer, and not to mention that if it's sitting somewhere, like, I see what my daughter has, what her vinyl that she buys, and it's just like, and I'm like, oh, what are you listening to? And you can see it. It's not like it's in the phone. I don't know what she's listening to. I can see the jackets right there.
No 2 Lav Crew for you.
No, she grew up on some pretty hard stuff, so she's allowed. It's good. Yeah. Actually, an interesting story about I was mastering a Cave-In record, and as my wife was going into labor, and I actually had to try to finish the record before we left. And I was like, no, not yet.
Keep her in.
Yes. It's a crazy thing.
I heard a similar story today, except it wasn't a Cave-In record; it was a grilled cheese sandwich.
I was, yeah. She was complaining about terrible hospital food, and I had gotten up late. She'd been in the hospital. She was in labor for like over a week technically, and so she'd just been there, just contracting for a week. And I got up late one morning, and I'm like, okay, what can I bring you? She wanted grilled cheese, so I was at Uno's up the road. And I was bitching about how long it was taking, waiting forever. And she's like, "It doesn't matter. Come now. This is happening." And I was like, "I've never been in such a panic." I sped to the store, the old store. I had Nipper with me.
You threw your dog.
I literally threw the dog like onto the chair and like, I gotta go. And then it was still like 12 more hours by the time I got to the hospital because it started and then it just stopped.
What a cock tease.
Yep.
She was very sad because apparently Uno's doesn't make that grilled cheese anymore.
They don't, and it wasn't.
her last
you know what though?
chance.
She did still eat it because around 11 p.m. they still weren't born, and she sent her dad out to my truck to get the sandwich so she could eat something.
She mentioned that. Yeah.
Awesome.
Back to this digital thing because I'm a little blown away by what you told me. So can you talk about the difference between what you're getting out of like a super audio CD or a blue spec CD compared to just a normal consumer grade CD?
Well, yeah, I mean, just higher sample rates, fuller bit depths. And again, a CD can sound pretty good. But
I never complained about a CD personally.
But we just abused the technology. Like I said, 96 dB of dynamic range. Like there's a story I used to tell about, and I'll tell it again now. When we were first time we mixed to a DAT tape, a digital tape, which is the same format digitally as a CD. And half-inch analog, and we were mixing on this Trident board, and there's a switch that allows you to hear which two of the playback devices, and were mixing down to it, and we'd switch back and forth. And at the time, the only thing we were because everything was analog, the way you judged the quality of an analog device was signal-to-noise ratio, left and right separation, frequency response. That's what you did. That's how you judged it. Like, well, which tape machine is better? Well, which has the flatter, truer frequency response? Well, and which one, has better signal to noise? You don't want to hear that tape hiss. That's how you judged it. And when we AB'd the half-inch to the DAT, we were judging it on those same constraints that we were used to judging one analog machine against the other. And we were kind of like, I remember my buddy Steve Watson, my assistant, we just looked at each other and we were like, that sounds awesome. because it beat it in dynamic range, and it beat it in left and right separation, and it beat it in truism of frequency response. Now, what we came to learn is we actually loved that bass bump, depending upon, and you could vary it. Again, the analog was interactive. Depending upon the speed that you're mixing down to, you get a 50 cycle bump or 100, depending upon the tape machine it is. It could be 50, 60 cycle hump. So but we miss all that stuff in between that's in the grid. The thing that I hate about digital is that it is a grid, that there's a finite number of places that energy can be stored, and as we keep compressing and limiting things in digital harder and harder, if you think that there's 16 bits of audio, if we're squashing it into the top 12 dB or so of dynamic range, we're losing 2/3 to 3/4 of the potential of where we could store that information. So as we make things louder and more in tune with auto-tune, everything starts getting a smaller and smaller grid, and it all starts to sound the same, and we can't tell the difference from it anymore. Which I find is quite remarkable. Again, my daughter will be just playing stuff, and I can't. I'm thinking, like, who is that? Is that so and so, or is that? It's just they sound the same. Whereas on vinyl, I think we talk about it. I think about when you heard Bill Bruford's snare drum or something, from Yes, you heard that was his sound, and I miss that. Nostalgia. Digital what? So DSD is awesome. We have a DSD recording deck, and it operates at 5.2 megahertz sampling rate.
I don't know what
amazing.
DSD is.
DSD digital stream audio.
Okay.
Yeah, it's SACD.
Oh, okay.
SACD is one form of it.
Okay.
And it sounds awesome. But again, it's a lot of data. You can't store it in your phone, and there was also a licensing issue. Sony owned the license to it and didn't want to, let people mass produce them. So to get back in the day when CDs were the rage, and then DSD was coming along and saying, "Hey, we sound so much better." Well, I was doing indie mastering, so the bands were only selling maybe. The average band, maybe 20, 40,000 records or something like that. Well, to get one DSD disc pressed was like $50,000. So it was the cost. It was just cost prohibitive for anybody to enter into that world.
And the consumer's perspective too. Like, I remember when SACD came out, and I read all about it, and I was excited about it. I was 15.
Right.
There's no fucking way I could afford a player.
Yeah, there were $1,000, $2,000. Yeah, it was really highbrow stuff, and because Sony was owning they owned the license to the technology, and rather than opening it up and saying let's let the format flourish, they said no, you got to pay it, for all of our R&D, and it crashed. Yeah.
Fucking Sony. Yeah. Ask JB. Yeah. I am always bitching about Sony.
yeah, okay.
Well, let me take it in the opposite spectrum. I've never actually listened to a proper reel-to-reel tape, but I've heard from so many people that just like to come shoot the shit that what you can hear on like a 1/4 inch or even a 1/2 inch tape is so much even more detailed than what I'm hearing on LP. Like the one scenario I can remember is, I think on Zeppelin 2, somebody was telling me that you can literally hear the squeak of Bonham's kick drum pedal, whereas I can't hear that on the LP.
Yeah, but that was part of the the creative process too in the studio. That's why we go back now when we hear all those little mistakes and things that were on recordings that you never heard, but now because they're remastered or something that we're starting to hear them. But I don't know. Vinyl, like I say, it can be one. I don't know if you guys know. I have a pretty rockin' turntable, Force L Air Force One. It's linear tracking, runs on compressed air and stuff, and it's
cool.
pretty awesome. And we use it to do transfers and things like that, which and can be really enjoyable to just listening to the Dark Side of the Moon on. But it takes a lot of money to make it sound that really great.
Right.
Nowadays with tape decks, you can buy a used 1/4 inch deck for a couple $100, a decent one.
$149.99.
$149. You have one over here?
Yeah. Sony.
Sony deck. Okay. Yeah. And
Sony.
And you could probably find, I would suppose, reel to reels. There's a company that is selling those, right?
Yeah, there's a brand new company, or it's an extension of another company who's started putting out commercially made reels again.
Yeah,
but they're really fucking expensive.
Yeah. But that's when you have the $30,000 turntables,
Right,
Who cares if you
right.
spend $200 on a reel a quarter-inch tape for your enjoyment?
Of Leonard
yeah.
Bernstein or whatever it is.
Yeah, it's cool. Well, I mean that's the original analog format. Analog, and we perfected the analog recording devices over the course of about 50 or 60 years. From wire to tape, and up through the early 80s when the Studer A800s, A827s, those 2-inch analog machines, they're just absolutely awesome. They sounded great. And then, so you had decades, 3, 4, 5 decades of perfecting analog recording. Now in digital, we're now maybe 30 years in, but I don't know that we're going to get it much better. It's kind of depressing, but
Yeah, I mean, I guess where does it really go from here, especially with the push towards lower quality formats as well?
Home holograms of Tupac. They just come into your home.
Alexa?
well,
Play Tupac.
I mean, there are, like you say, the Pono player and things, and mastered for iTunes, and there are people. Tidal made an attempt at it, to try to have better resolution digital, but again, it's just not that engaging thing.
Yeah, the mass
that's the bottom
market
line.
just doesn't give a shit.
I enjoyed listening to the Pono, but I wasn't going to travel with my phone and
Yeah.
Pono player.
Right.
Like, just didn't make sense.
Right, yeah. And I would suppose from a certain standpoint too, the artwork, it really has suffered. I mean, I think that's can't be at all a reason why vinyl is coming back. It's like we love the vinyl, we love the artwork, we love looking at stuff and the tactile thing. Like I said, I can see what my daughter's listening to. Her friends can see what they're listening to. They bring over a record, they'll play it. It's like, oh, you've got that. It's not, there's something way more engaging that ties people together. So
I often own up on this podcast to being the sort of like vinyl layman, where, I originally collected vinyl, even like when I first came to the store, was artwork purely. I had a piece of shit turntable. I mainly listened to things digitally anyway,
Right.
and it wasn't until truthfully, I learned so much just being here and just talking about things and understanding more. And as I've gone on and have built up things that I have at home, so I can actually listen properly. And
Right.
I've sort of opened this new world to myself. But
it is remarkable. Like when you were saying about what's the difference? Like I'll have to say maybe 4 out of 5 bands don't even realize that I'm putting the more dynamic version of their music on the vinyl. Like they don't even know what it's supposed to sound like. Like you say, the layman on it. Like they're just like, oh, Alan knows what to do with it,
Right.
And there is a very successful band that we've done that. I do it with a lot of bands, and it's not out of disrespect to them or mischiefness. It's just that's the way that format's being listened to.
Yeah.
People are listening through an entire side. It's got to be engaged. If it's all plastered all the time, even in a band like Converge or Dillinger Escape Plan, even that there's a lot of dynamic in that music that is more evident on their vinyl than it is on their CDs or on their digital downloads.
All right, I know we've talked this, but I'm just trying to really wrap my head around it. So when on the CD, we're getting more compression just because of the nature of how people are listening to it.
Exactly.
Okay. I think that's where I lost it, before, because I've always been a proponent that you're getting more out of an LP, and I was not I don't really listen to CDs anymore.
Musically more, you're saying?
Musically more. Yeah, that's what I've always told people. But now it makes more sense in this conversation now, because when done properly, you are getting more range because you're getting more compression otherwise.
Yeah, you're getting a much more musical product. Yeah, and it's also being cut from a 24-bit, probably 96K master. So you're sourcing to that analog format with a higher sample rate, a higher bit depth. So you're getting more dynamics, more frequencies that are going into that master. It's about half of that which winds up going onto CD.
That's exactly what I've always said,
Yeah.
but I just apparently I misunderstood the reason why.
But the funny thing about it is, if you just look at the specs about a vinyl turntable or a stylus or cartridge combination and a CD player, the CD player's technical specs blow the cartridge away.
Right.
I mean, with rare exceptions, unless you're spending $5,000 or $8,000 on a cartridge, the typical cartridge is only going to maybe do 30 cycles to 15,000, and a CD is easily doing 20 to 20,000. So it's got wider frequency response. Again, the left and right separation signal, all these specs are better, but because we're taking a much more musical, master and putting it in that, it's just deceiving. And then you can get into the whole psychoacoustic thing that when it's not so compressed, that the device, the turntable, does actually become part of that playback. The stylus, the how is it vibrating? How is it vibrating the cantilever? The tone arm. How does all that interplay with it all? And I have a good friend, Michael Fremer. He writes for Stereophile and has Analog Planet. I should plug his website, analogplanet.com. And, he's like one of the aficionados of, and he's got, crazy, continuum $150,000 turntable, and it's truly amazing, that when you really, really listen to, again, that limited format. I mean, the vinyl, that there's not as much frequency response, not as much dynamic range, worse signal to noise ratio, but you listen to it and you go, I'm way more affected by listening to this
Absolutely.
than anything else. Yeah, it's remarkable.
We just got in a sizable batch of original Blue Note, Prestige, Riverside, early Atlantic stuff. They just sound so incredible.
Yeah.
And for someone who's never really experienced much jazz, I just wanted more and more and more.
Yeah.
Like, I probably played half of what we got, just, typing, doing whatever, but I'm stopping going, holy shit, this sounds good.
Well, that's the other thing is that, as an engineer, you had to learn how to get it to get played back out of that vinyl that way. In the digital world, it's an exact duplicate. So, you could be mixing down in the studio and you hear your final, digital master and you go, well, there you go. That's what the CD is going to be. There's no surprises. Isn't that wonderful? Well, in one sense it is, but that wonderfulness isn't as great as what it could be.
Right.
And you had to learn how to make sure your left and right was in phase and you weren't putting out of phase low frequency information on your mixes. And, and you realized that when the playback, after it was cut, that center information would get a little bit hotter. So you would pan things out a little bit wider for the on the master, so that on the vinyl would just suck in a little bit. It was a little bit of more of a black magic format, of like mixing down and having that vinyl come back sounding great.
It's funny. I think. Do you think a lot of people think about how the end user, is going to hear their record?
Well, I mean, as you climb that ladder of status in the engineering field or in the production field, it starts to matter, because if you're not selling records, or if your artists aren't marketing themselves well enough, you're not going to get hired again. So every advantage you could possibly have is to your advantage there. I mean,
but do you see that from like a band perspective? Like, so you're mixing a band's record. Do you think they're thinking about how their fans are going to experience their record, or is that they're leaving that up to you?
I think they often, again, as they climb up higher, they're hiring you to experience that.
Gotcha.
I mean, bands come in on, for sessions all the time, and they go, look, just do what you do. You do what you do, and we're just here to just check it out and take some pictures so we can show people we're here or something.
Right, right.
And I'm honored that they feel that way, and I often say that that's what I'm going to do anyway.
Regardless.
But I want you to participate. I want you to hear. I want to know. And we often spend 15 minutes at the beginning of a session just talking about music. Just say, hey, what have you guys heard recently that you like? Let's talk about it. Oh, yeah, we heard such. Oh, yeah. And if I haven't heard it, I'll even just try and download it just to check it out.
Right.
Just to hear and get a sense of where they're at. Yeah. I think what's interesting is when they'll, you hear a band and they start saying, oh, yeah, we love, old Beatles or whatever. And then you actually play the vinyl. Like I'll play it in the control room. And they're just like, oh my God, I've never heard that like that, So,
just kind of reminds me of the story. So again, on that trip I was at last fall with a bunch of record store owners, they had a speaker come who was Cosmo Vinyl, who is this English dude who is like a tour manager for the Clash for a long time, And if you ever listen to the Clash live at Shea Stadium, he's the guy at the beginning going, "Ladies and gentlemen." So he did his speech, and it was all about negativity, and it was really cool. It was a good speech. And then afterwards, they put us on a bus to go to some like seafood restaurant for dinner. And I was sitting on the bus on the inner seat, empty seat next to me. He gets on the bus. He's like, "Oh, could I sit here?" And my mind was fucking blown because now the tour manager of the Clash is sitting next to me. I had so many questions. But the first thing I went to was we had just gotten in a UK test pressing of London Calling. But I couldn't actually confirm that it was a test pressing because there's no markings on it. The only thing I had was like a data sheet that somebody had slipped into the jacket. So I started asking him about it, and he confirmed my suspicions that it was probably a test pressing, and that it's entirely possible, because they only made like 10 of them, he said, that it could have been one of the copies that they took to Joe's grandmother's house, because when they got the record, whoever did it in the studio said, "Do you want to listen to it here?" And the band said, "No, I want to listen to it how I think our fans are going to hear it." So we took it to his grandmother's house to play it on like the little furniture hi-fi deck in her living room.
Right.
And I guess there's actually a picture of the band sitting around on this couch listening to their test press of London Calling.
That's
Just,
awesome.
just a cool fucking story.
That is cool. Yeah.
That record's for $5,000.
No, that record went home in my collection.
Yeah, I mean, it was interesting to see, the transition of how people were listening. I predominantly grew up with vinyl, and even as I was engineering, I was starting off, it was vinyl. CDs had just come out, but they were so expensive for bands to press that, again, like you're starting off as a young engineer, you're not working right away with major artists. So, everybody was still pressing vinyl. And then to see the transition to digital and, kind of being amazed, like the first CDs that we pressed, we were so excited about, but it went away.
Yeah.
It went away. Yeah. I just heard that there's another mastering facility that they throw their backups away every few years, and so with that goes all the high resolution data, and I have ever a copy or availability to get at all of our high resolution audio all the time. So if there are new formats that come out, and even the vinyl, like a lot of the vinyl reissues that people are doing now, we're just doing Streetlight Manifesto right now, and we're going back to the 2496 files, and we're not necessarily remastering, because those higher resolution files are stored with all of the EQ and compression that we wanted, but not the limiting that was used for the CDs. So they're more dynamic, so you know what? The vinyl that's being pressed from that is going to sound awesome and significantly better than the CDs. It's remarkable.
That's awesome.
I mean, it's remarkable if to think that the older technology is way more musical, and we can talk metaphysical too. I mean that about electrons and how it's pulling through the atoms and the atoms are moving and the vinyl gives and takes. It's a living thing. Just strictly the fact that we are taking a more musical, engaging performance of technical performance and putting it in this lesser format. It's awesome. It's great. Yeah.
When you say you're storing things, are you talking about digital files?
Digital. Yeah, those are digital.
Are you storing like tape and stuff too?
Yeah, we've got quite a few.
So do you have like a vault, like a humidity controlled and all that kind of
right?
stuff?
Alec, what do we have?
On the walls, we have a tote just open.
Yeah, just.
But
There are quite a few. I mean, of the older bands, we have the Misfits, Ramones, all the Death reissues that we're just all their 2-inch masters. We have all those. There's a whole wall of that. So yeah, there's it used to be one room, and now it's the hallway and the back room and things. And the strange thing too is that you call people to come and get them. Because I've moved the studio. So I've moved it twice. I'm in my third studio, and you call people all the time. You go, okay, hey, listen, we're moving. Come and get your tapes, and they're like, can you hold on to them a little bit long? And so to this day, I've never thrown a master away. I just refuse to. I actually recently, a year or two ago, pulled something from 30 years ago that I found. So I can't believe that I had the tape,
Yeah.
But we had it.
Well, you hear stories all the time of people who want to do reissues or whatever and trying to source down the original tapes, and nobody really seems to know where they are for the most part.
Because it's they were cumbersome, and people put them in the top shelf of their closet or something, and that's a whole other thing. Baking and transferring them into higher resolution too. We do that.
I don't even know what that means. Baking.
Well, tape is it's metal. It's iron oxide, and just like the railing on your front stoop or on your steps, if it's left out in humid conditions with the water,
it's gonna oxidize
rusts it and it oxidizes, it loosens up and it falls off. Tape does the same thing. So before we do if we transferred an old tape that was in a humid environment, in an attic or in a moist environment in a basement, we actually have to bake it to pull the moisture out. If we don't, it starts to stick to the heads and it pulls the oxide off the tape, in which case it's gone forever. Then it's done. So we bake them at varying temperatures over long periods of time, often, over 6 hours, 8 hours, 12 hours, at fairly low temperatures, somewhere between, depending upon the batch. We have recipes for different kinds of tapes and what years they were made, what the conditions were, but 180, 170 degrees, something like that.
What are you baking them in?
It's a convection oven. There's like two major Farberware kind of convection ovens that were like about $1,000 a piece back in the day, and pretty much anybody that bakes tapes regularly, that's what we have. There are some other like dehydration smaller ones that'll take smaller reels and things like that, but they take longer and they're not quite as sealed, so they don't do quite.
So you don't recommend trying it at home?
No, especially don't put it in the microwave. Don't do that, please.
Alan ruined my cassette tape.
Well, but
My Beatles masters, no.
Well, actually, one of the funny things is that when we do transfer tapes and we'll go through the whole procedure, and could take a day of baking and then transferring, and then you make a copy of it and you send it to the people and they go, "This isn't my tape." But it was in their box, but it was a different tape.
That's funny.
With Guar, that happened with Guar a couple of years ago. I transferred a reel that they were remixing, so a bunch of them, and they were like, "This is the wrong record."
This is Carly Simon.
That's how they got that song. So it happens to major artists. Just so. There's another studio down in Central Jersey, Tracks East, that's going through a changeover of ownership, and they have a lot of tapes. They have probably 2 decades worth of 2-inch tapes, or so. And the new owner's like, "Well, what do you do with it?" I'm like, "Well, don't throw it away. I'll come and get it. Or I'll send Alec to come and get it." Give him a little plug over there. Saving the tapes.
Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah.
We Roberto and I a couple of years ago got to do a back access tour of Jack White's facility in Nashville, and there was like 2 rooms that were off limits to the tour. It was Jack White's office and his vault. Yeah, he's got like this huge vault that they built in the middle of the studio that has like some crazy door on it.
Silo. It was like a cylinder.
Yeah, it was, and I can't. It's so long ago, I can't remember. But something about there's some sort of special like gas built in there where if even like cigarette smoke comes in contact it'll automatically release something and seal it. It was like
a foam that
crazy,
seals the door. Wow. Yeah.
It was crazy shit.
Well, they are the masters. Are you guys familiar with Iron Mountain up here?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the tape storage vault for, but not just audio, but videotapes and all that kind of stuff.
Oh, I thought they were just like a destruction.
Yeah. No.
Oh, no.
Yeah,
their logo is a buzzsaw cutting through a CD. So I was
they also do like paper shredding.
Yeah,
and
I thought they just destroyed shit.
Yeah, it was old iron mine, and with the potential of some kind of war breaking out, and missiles headed to New York. How do you protect your catalog? A record company, what's it worth? It's worth your catalog and contracts. Well, the contracts are paper. You can store them a lot of different places, but you got that magnetic tape is your master. That's it. Where do you store it? You store it inside an iron mountain so that the magnetic fields from the radiation and everything won't kill it. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
I have never thought that deep into
storing
tapes.
Well, with
Holy
us,
shit.
with our digital masters, I mean, on our day-to-day basis, we back up to hard drives onto 2 drives because in digital, if you don't have 2, you don't really have 1. So, and I take 1 home with me every night. Just in case of any situation.
Like you have a backup like every day of your entire thing.
Yeah, twice a day probably. Yeah, of everything.
But but every day you're taking a backup home with you.
Oh yeah.
Oh
yeah.
wow.
In a briefcase, he handcuffs it to his hand, takes it home.
Well, I tell all my employees, like if there's any kind of emergency, fire, flood, whatever, what's the first thing you grab? And and the first assistants are always like, and they think like, what's the most important piece of equipment? Oh, grab that EQ, grab that, compressor. Oh, he always uses that compressor. It's like, I don't give a shit about the compressor. Grab tapes. Get the hard drives out.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what's worth.
So they get fired if they save themselves and just
That's what I was thinking.
I thought we were about to go into a quiz mode for you really fast. All I can think about is that mountain that's, God, I have no idea where this is. I'm just going to paraphrase, but there's like a mountain in Norway or something where they are just like storing seeds.
Oh, the seed bank?
And
Yeah.
everything. It's like in the event of
It's like in the
apocalyptic
right outside the Arctic Circle or something like that.
Yeah, and that's now that's all I perceive for Iron Mountain is just same thing, just music.
I can't believe that bands don't pick up their tapes. I mean, or that we have them. I mean, I guess they know that I'm a maniac about it, so they're leaving them with me.
It's the same symptom, I guess, of CD listening or CD mastering. It's complacent population.
Yeah.
You're the
maybe they just know that it's safer on your wall than it is in grandma's attic.
They do feel that a lot. They do say it. They're like, it's safer here than elsewhere. I'm like, great, but we don't charge to hold them. And Iron Mountain, they charge, to take your tapes.
You're the guardian.
I'm the guardian.
You're the guardian of knowledge and history.
The Misfits Masters. Oh my God.
I don't want to make a Lord of the Rings reference here, but if your beard was a little longer and you had more of a robe on,
I was going to say Kurt Russell from.
Okay, we can do that too. Yeah,
Okay. He wasn't a guardian. He wasn't guarding things.
I don't know. I just thought I went to the movie so
I
I could eat popcorn and get out of the house.
Wait, are we still talking about Gandalf? Because
No, I went to Guardians of
Gandalf
the
wasn't
Galaxy.
a guardian either.
I love the fact that you guys sell
No.
hi-fi gear here too. I mean, I think that's really cool.
It's something we're getting more and more into. I only started maybe 2.5 years ago. It just seemed to be a need for it.
Yeah, absolutely. Because where else do you? I mean, where else can you get that same tactile feeling? I mean, even if it's the choice between a red platter or a clear platter or whatever on your turntable, it's nice to see it there and say, "Oh, that's what I want. That's what I want."
Mm-hmm.
That's what that's kind of how we all grew up.
And now we're starting to dabble in like repairs as well, and so it's
I just heard you talking
opening
about
up
that.
a whole nother world for us too.
Yeah,
and it's all buyer beware. This is a capitalist venture here, so it's a love, but at the same time, if we're getting people in to do repairs, those aren't necessarily people who are coming here otherwise.
Right.
It's just more people in the door, and then they're telling other people, and more repairs, and more record sales, and the whole thing goes round.
Yeah, it's cool, awesome.
I had a long conversation today, in fact, with a woman who came in and was looking to buy some kind of stereo setup for her daughter who was 15, but we probably had a 20-minute long, half an hour long conversation about experience and what she wants to get out of it and what she grew up with versus what her daughter is growing up with and how they both perceive it. And it really just sort of it became like a philosophical conversation more than like a technical, talking about like details of what makes. She was questioning what's a better system, a receiver with speakers, or like we have the starter kit speakers that are built-in preamps. And I was like, well, it depends on what you want to get out of it. It's all about the experience and what she wants and where she's going in life, and does she want to take these with her? Does it need to be mobile? And and she said, well, which sounds better? And I was like, that's a big question.
Yeah.
That's a hard one. It's really about. Well, like I said, in the end we just had this long conversation about like experience and what she wants to get out of it and how she's going to perceive the music. And That's what a lot of people. That's often the conversation that we end up having in that hi-fi room with people, which is great.
And I wonder if you see the same hurdle on your end, but here we see a lot of people not willing to devote space or sort of afraid to devote space to a system. Like, the smaller the better, it seems, and I think that's a product of phones and streaming and the iPod. And
how can you get the best of both worlds?
Yeah, it's like people really more often than not, people are going, well, I've got 24 inches. Can I fit this whole setup in 24-inch space?
Right.
I mean, I think for somebody starting out, absolutely. Mm-hmm. But we hope you move past that. But do you see the same thing as like gear coming smaller or anything?
Well, in digital recording, with everybody has their laptop has complete multi-track, amazing recording facility right there. But again, gets into the grid mode. It's very powerful. There are things that it can do that the older analog technologies cannot do, but it's a grid, and every time and it's kind of phenomenal that I'd say more than half of all the projects that come in are either at 44 kilohertz or 48 kilohertz sampling rate, the mixdowns, even by well-established mixing engineers, that they're not going to 88K or 96K. We actually have 2 DSD recorders, and we will loan one out. If people are mixing in the analog world or summing their music in the analog world, we will loan you one of our DSD recorders so that we can store that analog mix in the best possible format, DSD, and then just send, and it's a file, but it's, 10 times the resolution of a CD. And so we'll gladly, just because it's going to sound better, and we've made that expense.
So can we just come to your place and burn really nice CDs?
When Kid A came out, someone rented an hour's studio time. He bought the disc and he brought it to the studio. It was whatever that was, the Tuesday I guess it was, and just said, I'm going to come right here. I'm not going to listen to a note, and I just want to pay you for 1 hour's time. I'm going to listen through this album.
Wow.
Yeah, and I got to hear it too. It was awesome.
That's cool.
Yeah.
I would have never thought to do that.
Now.
Now, yeah.
No, well, it's funny you say that because something I was thinking about earlier, talking about bands and their files and whatnot. We now, at least in the past year, we've had 2 different bands who have come in, or either called or emailed me ahead of time, and they've said like, "Hey, I got my test pressing for my album, and I don't have a turntable." Or I don't have a good system, I want to hear it. I want to hear what it's like, and I will often get the phrase, "I want to hear what it's supposed to sound like." And they'll come in here, and they know that we can put it on here, and it'll sound good, and or they don't have turntables, so then it'll just sound like anything.
It'll sound like a thing.
I do a lot of test pressing checking. The people will send me their test pressings because they have no way to check it. And I mean, I'm happy that somebody's checking it,
Right.
But I think it's growing though. That I don't know. I'm probably only checking maybe 1 or 2 a month now, when it used to be. And although the numbers are up on the vinyl, it used to be at least once a month. 5, 6, 7 years ago, when people weren't pressing as much vinyl, so I was more. It was more frequent that I was actually checking it. Some good stuff. I have some good old test pressings too.
We did a tour a couple of years ago at a pressing facility, and they kind of lead you through the whole history of the building, and we got to the room where they listened to the test pressings, and I was incredibly dismayed at what a shitty turntable this guy was sitting there listening to these test pressings on.
Right.
Like, I feel like it had like the red Crosley needle on it, but I can't be 100% sure right now.
It was just the guy in the room. It was like in a closet, basically.
Yeah, it's a closet with a pair of headphones and a shitty turntable. It was like an Ion. It was an Ion turntable, the very same one that you used to have, like that black curved one. I was like, you're listening to a test pressing on this? Yeah. I was disheartened.
Yeah. Well, I have two turntables in my control room. I have the Forcell, and then I have a was it the MM7? Or is it MM7 or
7.7 or whatever, 9.1
music hall? Yeah, it's
Yeah.
MM7. I think it is. It's the 3-plith one.
Yeah,
I think
yeah.
It is, yeah. So and that that's non-linear tracking, and that's what I normally check it on that because it's a little unfair to check it on the $30,000 turntable,
Right.
versus $1,800 turntable or 15, whatever. What do they sell for?
I think those are above that now. They're
Above that.
probably around $3,000.
Three, wow.
Yeah. Because the entry level one, the 2.2, which is what I have, it was $500. So
What kind of cartridges and styluses are you guys selling here?
we're selling Grado and Ortophon and Shure for the DJs.
Which Shures? You don't have V15s, do you?
The M97 XE and whatever the DJ one is. I can't remember off the top of my head.
What the DJ ones are. Yeah.
The big, it's the one that all the scratch DJs want to use. That's the one stock. But we stock the full line of Grados up until you get into the reference series because, this is very consumer grade here.
Yeah.
And I'll stock the entire Ortophon line up through the 2M Black.
What's amazing is listening to a mono disc with a mono cartridge. Do you guys ever experience that?
I have not. I've always wanted to.
That's, in a sense, it's kind of going back to why mono sounds great. Like if you hear Pet Sounds in mono versus stereo, like to me, the stereo version is really cool. Like I kind of like the stereo version, but the mono version played back with a mono cartridge is really awesome. Yeah. It's kind of crazy that's the case. But, But it actually, you don't get that left and right click and pop and kind of phasey thing that happens because you're listening to a stereo cartridge. It's just mono. You're just getting the sum of the two,
Yeah, I've always had a fantasy of being able to have either multiple tables or a table that I could just easily pop a different head shell on and off, so I could have that experience.
Well, you can mount multiple tone arms on it.
True.
I know people that have done that. Yeah.
He has twin daughters.
I understand.
Yep.
Yes. So.
What about a question somebody posed to me maybe a week ago that I fumbled my way through, but somebody asked me, sonically, what's the difference between 33 and 45? Like, why are a lot of audiophile pressings pressed at 45 RPM?
More real estate. You have considerably more distance to cut the same amount of information. It's the same reason why the outer grooves sound better than the inner grooves on any record, in a sense, is that the inner groove only has, a certain smaller circumference. The record turns at the same speed. At 33 1/3 on the outside, you've got 3 times the circumference than you do on the inside. So the outer grooves sound significantly better. The inner grooves have far less space to cut that in.
So that's why reissues are coming out on like double LP, or it used to be a single, and they're 3 tracks.
That's
versus
something
6
interesting
on
to
the
talk
side.
about because if you don't, when you get a record cut. And if it's only a 10-minute side, people want to separate that groove so you don't get as much, intermodulation groove distortions and stuff. But in fact, you want to keep it away from those inner grooves. So cut it all on the outside if at all possible. But here's something interesting. So we'll master, double vinyl records all the time, and then inevitably there's a 5-minute side. Because the record's really 55 minutes, and the way you're breaking up 10 songs, and it's like, well, it doesn't. We'll just put I never listen to the side that's 5 minutes long, unless it happens to be an absolutely awesome song. It's like it's just too short. I don't want to have to change the side after 5 minutes. So I often try to get people to throw something else on, throw anything, even an interview, a dialogue, anything on that last piece wherever it's made.
The thing that drives me crazy is when there'll be a double LP come out and side 4 is just blank. Like not even etching or anything, just blank.
Yeah.
It is weird.
Nocturama.
Yeah.
New Michelle Branch record.
Well, I'm
Is
not
that
a
just-
Michelle Branch connoisseur like you are, sir.
Listen, neither am I, but the other day, Aaron flipped the record from side 3 and wasn't paying attention. And I was like, why am I hearing this noise? It was quiet. It was pretty quiet, but then we got to the end, and I was like, wait, the arm is already at the end? And I went and looked at it, and there's nothing on side 4. Nothing.
Do you guys ever do, like, you should do a class here on setting up tone arms.
So many times we've talked about this.
Yeah. Michael Fremer has a great DVD about it, about setting up tone arms and cartridges and, doing it simply. He does it, lots of different ways, the unipivot, as well as, lots of different formats. That would be an awesome thing.
Yeah, we've been talking for probably 2 years about making even just a YouTube video, like how to set up your turntable when you get it home. Like, you just bought the Music Hall USB 1.
Right.
This is what you need to do.
Right. But it's not as much fun if you're doing it by yourself.
It's true. Yeah.
You got to come out and hang out and try stuff.
I think I even my goal for 2017, which clearly we're halfway through, but my goal for 2017, as of last year, was to do like a Darkside clinic series, and I wanted to do it on the stage, and it would be like Sundays at 11 in the morning, and it'd just be like maybe an hour. I don't know what the details would be, but one would be like setting up a turntable, but then I really wanted to branch it out. I wanted it to be like I wanted to do a yoga class, and I wanted to do like a CPR class, and I wanted to do a like how to set up your guitar class, and they could each be sponsored by different people, and so we could get someone who's really knowledgeable in their own thing to come and do it.
So you're not going to teach the yoga class?
You don't want me teaching the yoga class?
I'm not coming if you're not teaching.
Have you guys heard about there's a couple of people that like do these listening parties, but like high end, like they'll get somebody that was involved in the record. It could be like the person who, Roger Dean that designed the artwork, or somebody maybe the A&R person or an engineer from the record or something, and they'll do a listening party, and they'll people pay like $40-$50 to be there, and you listen through the A side, and then in between the A and the B side, this person that's involved in the record does a speech.
Doors record in L.A.
Yeah, we went to a thing like that in L.A.
Yeah, you should do that here.
I would love to do that.
Yeah, we should start doing that. We could do it with Today's the Day.
Yeah,
you guys ever hear that band?
Who? What day? Yeah, I think it'd be great just to have like somebody to, bring in a nice hi-fi system, set it up. Let
you
somebody
guys have great systems here.
We do. Like, actually, I put a
those
decent amount
are
of.
they still here? The Dalquist speakers?
They're tucked away.
They're tucked away.
Yeah,
Bring them out. Yeah.
I've got some Dyne Audio speakers too, which I. Oh, okay. Yeah. I got the.
Yeah.
Similar to that, I've always wanted to do like a lecture series where we just get somebody who's really knowledgeable about something, and just have people come and listen to them speak about whatever it might be.
Hey, you're in it.
I know.
Well, but there are a lot of people like VPI is local to the tri-state area, right? Great. Well,
yeah, they're in Jersey, right?
Grado, he just died, right? A year or so ago.
Yeah.
Right? So he was in Brooklyn, I think.
Yeah, they're still in Brooklyn.
Right? They're still in Brooklyn.
Yep.
There are a lot of I mean, you could get equipment manufacturers to come up and do. I think it's good. I'm glad we're thinking of this. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
If anybody out there has connections to anybody cool like that, let us know.
If anybody would be interested in that, let us know.
Yeah, that too. The other problem is it's not easy, but it's easy enough to set up cool events. But you always want to have a good turnout as well, and that is sometimes the challenge of our particular location.
It's like anything with a band. It takes time. You know? So I mean, you have to. I mean, I think you guys are doing. I don't know. I think it would be great. I'll help. So
there we go.
Yeah.
All right.
Lecture number 1.
Yeah.
I always thought it'd be great to have David Martin to do a whole session on Miles Davis.
Oh, yeah.
That would just blow everybody's fucking mind.
Maybe the bridge here is that I've been wanting us to do live podcast recordings. We set up like a venue style thing where people come and watch, and we do it up on a stage and record it. There you go.
We were going to do something at the Falcon where we were going to do for local bands, how to maximize your marketing, your promotion, all that kind of stuff. That would be a good one.
Yeah.
For you guys too, especially.
That one, especially if you're trying to target that to local bands, I think that could have a pretty big draw here.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, just do it doesn't have to be a 3-day seminar. Or
Yeah, just
discount at the local hotel thing, but just like an afternoon. Just
Yeah.
get a couple of people. And we used to have this thing we call Gear and Beer, and we're trying to get it back in line too, which was just, the second Tuesday of every month, we would just get together, at a location, and we would find different locations around, especially North Jersey or the Hudson Valley. And we would just get together, and sometimes you'd have 30 people, sometimes you'd have 7, but it would all be studio guys, and we would just get together and just talk. And we're trying to institute that again, just to help promote better audio. Which I don't know if it's a segue anywhere, but I think ultimately the resurgence of vinyl and mastering engineers putting that more dynamic stuff. I think we are getting back to a hi-fi world. We are. I think people are starting to recognize better quality again.
I just think even people just need to be shown.
Yeah.
It's sort of lost. Like, there's a generation that just sort of abandoned it,
Right.
and then there's a generation that never experienced it.
Right. Yeah.
Like, there's, I've definitely experienced here before somebody coming in and, a child and a father and explaining what a CD is. And that,
Right.
being somebody who grew up primarily with CDs
Right.
is mind-blowing.
Right. Yeah.
It's like, I remember my dad specifically telling me once that there were no Game Boys when he was a kid, and I was like, what? I did not understand.
You're so stupid, Dad. Always do this.
If you did a seminar, you could do a technical, talk, and then you could do a musical talk. You could do a marketing talk. Make
Yeah.
it a wide-ranging thing. Setting up the turntable. That's not hard. I could help you with that one. You guys are probably pretty good at it too.
I'm okay at it. I just doubt myself, that's all.
He once popped all the wires off my cartridge.
No, you did that.
I
was there.
You know what? You were
I said,
there, and
"Don't
it
pull on the
happened.
wire."
And I think it,
Well, it's
I
funny.
don't want to point fingers.
I mean,
Someone popped them off.
in my control room, I've got my gauge,
Mm-hmm.
my all my cleaning brushes, and we were talking about vacuuming records and and cleaning records. It's when people see that, they're kind of like, "What are you doing?"
Yeah.
It's like, and I have the loud vacuum on my nitty gritty machine. It's just, everybody goes running. What is he doing?
I like to compare the Akinaki versus the music hall one that we're using, and people are always blown away by that, just the pure decibel difference between the two.
Yeah, yeah. Have you ever put that wood glue on a record to clean it?
No, I
can't do that, but I've seen.
too impatient.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
if I owned one record, maybe that would
Do you
be
guys,
fine.
you know what? See, because a lot of the 7 listeners that are out there may not know, but you can take a record and pour like Elmer's wood glue or whatever on it and smooth it out so that it cakes all over the top, and then let it dry. And then when it dries, it's not hardened yet, but you pull it off, and it's like you're peeling it off, and all of the gunk inside the record
peels right off, and you have-
comes out with it.
You have a negative or a positive
Stamp
of the record.
yeah.
Yeah.
I just want to say, I feel like I tell people not to do that. People come in and say, "Hey, have you heard of putting wood glue on your record?" And I was like, "No, don't do it. Stop."
Well, how about demagnetizing your records?
With like the Milty gun.
No, that's static.
Okay.
That's
okay,
static. Demagnetizing them.
That I've never done.
I was a disbeliever of that until I heard it, and Michael Fremer played it for me. He played a record that he hadn't demagnetized yet, and we listened to it, and it was awesome. And then he demagnetized vinyl, which is not magnetic
Yeah.
by nature, and it sounded better. I'm not going to say the blacks were blacker, the
Right.
silence was silent. Or,
Snozberries tasted like
yeah.
snozberries.
You're not writing for stereophile.
No. It actually it sounded better.
What do you demagnetize a record with?
A record demagnetizer that costs
Duh.
$5,000.
man.
Justin.
Again,
Yeah. Well, I've almost
knew
thought
that.
about trying it because I have a 2-inch tape demagnetizer. That it's got a little motor on it. It's got a very strong electromagnet, and it rotates it so that you can demagnetize a 2-inch tape. You have to flip them to get it fully demagnetized, but you can demagnetize it in 30 seconds. versus putting it on the tape machine and hitting play and record on all 24 tracks and letting it wind through, which takes 15 or minutes or 18 minutes, which doesn't seem like much, but when there's print through and there's all these other complications when you're working in an analog studio, it's like, no, demagnetize it. If you're going to go over a reel of tape, demagnetize it so there's none of that residual noise left over or the music left over. And music. And I was thinking about, I wonder if I could do that with my vinyl on that device. Yeah. Crazy. I didn't believe that. I mean, those, the people put those Schumach, whatever things, those diamonds in front of their speakers and trestles. You guys ever put trestles, put your
Under
wires on
anything?
trestles and things like that?
No, I haven't done that.
Again, there's a certain
I've seen a
science to
train
it that makes sense. Well, if that you're talking about electricity that's passing, in two different directions, separated by plastic, which becomes a semiconductor. And now what you're basically creating by having current on two sides of a semiconductor, creating a capacitor. And so it will discharge every time the currents go past zero, and it can produce a little tick ever so faintly within the wire. So when you raise your cables up off the floor, especially if it's a carpeted floor, you're no longer inducing the carpet as being part of that plastic non-conductor. So at certain levels, you can find the science to make it make sense.
Right.
Just whether or not you've got the
Yeah.
guts to do it. I mean, I have my system's bi-wired. I believe in bi-wiring.
So many questions I want to ask, and so many things we didn't
We'll
even
come back,
touch
we'll
on.
come back.
I would love to do this again sometime.
Yeah. Of course.
But honestly,
We should go to him next time.
done.
Yeah, we could do it. We could do it. It's
gonna sound
Do you have better microphones?
Yeah.
Would you want us to bring these?
You can hear my Anne
Bring
Frank
that
joke in
cable.
high def.
I'll bring this mic stand. You guys bring that cable.
Okay, perfect.
Cool.
Be like we're right at home.
Well, I mean, it's kind of like I was saying with this gear and beer thing, and even doing some. I think there is a big hobby part of it.
Absolutely.
And I have several friends. There's another friend I have down in Cherry Hill, New Jersey. He's got probably has $500,000 easily in his stereo setup. Guy was an accountant and whatever. But if I drove up to his house, which is actually kind of modest, and he had a $300,000 Ferrari, would I think he's crazy? No, I'd be like, wow, there's a successful man. But instead, he puts it in his stereo, and people think he's crazy. But
Right.
no, it's really that's his hobby. That's all.
Yeah.
And I think there's a couple records. Well, there's one that comes to mind that was very dynamic. The whole experience of the record, much like we were looking at Pink Floyd, Dark Side of the Moon or The Wall, where the listening is really an experience, and you really get engaged with that experience when the material helps you get there. But the technology behind it, if it draws people in, if people are into listening to music because it's a hobby, hell, that's awesome. So that's what you guys have to do, right? To make people buy more vinyl.
Yeah. We're dealers of nostalgia and purveyors of culture.
Yeah. Well, I mean,
That's our new T-shirt.
And
And
dick
ultimate-
jokes. We got some good dick jokes.
and ultimately they're getting better, more dynamic music, which is the real kicker to it.
The other cool thing, I've said this on this podcast before, but having been in business 6 years now, we've had customers who started with us near the beginning who have come and upgraded turntables sometimes twice. Like they've gone from a suitcase to a little Audio-Technica to a project now, and it's just it's cool to see the progression. And even kids, like I was talking with Aaron specifically around Christmas time, there were more like younger female shoppers here than there has ever been. Like especially after Christmas with gift cards, like the contingent of, I would guess, like 14 to 18-year-old females. 6 years ago, the store was packed with 40-plus-year-old dudes just telling me stories about Led Zeppelin and whatnot.
Right.
And now it's just completely
I think
changed.
you're thinking of one particular 40-year-old
Okay, sure,
dude.
but
I'm gonna venture that it's several.
Well, cool. I mean,
just one.
yeah, I'd say, I'd love to come back. I mean, to me, it's about, educating people about better quality. I mean, that's why people come to a mastering session. Really, they're not really gonna make constructive criticism as to whether it should be 1.7 dB at 3.5 or 1.4 dB at 1. They can't tell. They're not used to my room. I feel like we're educating them. I used to do it. We had a surround sound mixing room, and I used to bring people into the surround sound room and play The Shape of Punk to Come in surround.
Oh, nice.
Which have you ever heard that in surround?
No.
Oh my God. I mean, it's awesome in stereo.
Yeah.
But it's one of my top 5 in stereo. But in surround, it's my favorite listening experience ever. I mean, it blows all that other crazy shit away.
Yeah.
Flaming Lips do crazy shit in surround, but no.
Have you ever done the
refuse.
Zyrika record?
Which one?
Zyrika?
No.
The one where it's 4 different discs that you have to start at exactly the same moment.
Oh, yes. Okay, that's what it was called.
Yeah.
Because we did this Grace and State of Grace by Neurosis. We put together on a surround disc for Relapse, but they never released it. Yeah, the same thing happened with Mastodon. We mixed. Well, actually, Mastodon was released, but it's hard enough to get people to vinyl. Let's not go to surround right now.
Yeah.
Let's not go there.
This is 2 speakers. That's what we're selling.
Cool.
Well, we will continue this conversation on another episode of the Darkside podcast. Alan,
Pleasure.
thank you for being here.
Pleasure. Yeah, I thank you guys for being here, man. This is
listen.
awesome.
That guy.
Glad to listen in on it.
You didn't say much.
All right, last question. It goes to you.
All right.
Are you his Alan Parsons?
Working on it.
I was enjoying listening in on this. A lot of stuff I didn't know about. So,
Cool.
learning experience.
Glad you put that in mind to good
same
use.
for all of us. Yeah. So, cool. Well, listen. Thank you for listening to the Darkside Records podcast. Hey, if you're listening to this on iTunes, why don't you go click over in the little rating section there? Give us a little 5-star rating, or be honest. If you send us a 1-star rating, as long as you're genuine about it. If you're on iTunes, go send us a rating, good or bad. I don't give a shit. Just send us something. I'm forgetting something.
You know why? Because this is the most on-topic,
I know.
focused
I'm so thrown
podcast
off.
we've
Yeah.
ever fucking done.
I know.
Sorry.
And as always, head over to darksiderecords.com and come in the store. If you have questions for Alan for the next episode where he's on, if you have thoughts about it, you could tweet them at us using the hashtag DarksidePodcast. You could send us a Facebook message. You can email us. Send us your questions. Send us your comments. We'll read them on the next episode.
All questions go to Aaron at darksiderecordsandgallery.com.
Facebook. Just put them on Facebook.
Especially the
or
most
Twitter.
ridiculous ones. You want to send to that email address.
You can send your email to podcast at darksiderecordsandgallery.com, and we will answer your questions on the next episode.
Did anyone ever ask us any questions?
Yes, Evan technically asked us questions.
Oh, God.
westwestsidemusic.com.
westwestsidemusic.com. Sure.
Check it out.
Thanks.
Cool.
Cool. So as always, I'm JB.
I'm JJ.
I'm Berto.
Alan.
Alec.
Thank you for tuning in. We'll see you in a couple weeks.
Thanks.
See you.
Bye.
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 Can't fake it.
You can have it all too.
Look,
audience
that's
podcasts
what
are
I've
so
been
cool.
preaching for years.
Yeah, we used to do this thing.
You don't want to let me in with the live audience.
Mixing.
What are you talking about?